My whole life, I literally used to go to the gym and train 5 to 6 days a week. I thought that this was the key metric that you should be measuring. You should just be measuring how many times a week you're actually going to the gym, as opposed to actually some of the more key metrics, which you should be looking at, which we'll get into today. I spent so many years doing this just because I saw online that a lot of people were promoting this, that this was just the most common thing you should be doing. And if you want to build muscle, you should be going to the gym at least 5 to 6 days a week. So I used to follow a split that was push pull legs, rest. And I just kind of bought into it, and I thought that if I'd only gone 4 days that week, that I wasn't actually putting on enough muscle, and I was actually just being lazy and slacking off a little bit. Whereas the reality is actually so much different to this. And going 6 days a week is actually completely damaging and can destroy your progress and just destroy your physique. So the biggest issue with people going to the gym and training and just completely overtraining, blowing it out of the water, going to the gym way too often, a lot of times it's just because of this advice that you see online. It's pushed by the fitness industry so much now. You've seen so many people online. They just are constantly going to the gym literally every single day. These are some of the big influencers in LA and in America. They just literally go to the gym every single day, some of them 2 times a day. And they just promote that if you want to get in shape, you want to get into the gym, you actually need to be training 5, 6, even sometimes they say 7 times per day is how much time you need to train. So this is actually so damaging because this is completely false. It's been debunked many times. What's going to happen is you're just going to burn out and literally just stop going to the gym for most people. If you see most beginners who see this advice, their brain's just going to shut down at the thought of going to the gym too often. They're just going to burn out, and they're just actually not going to be able to keep this up and keep it sustainable. The next thing is that this isn't actually how you build muscle. It's not just about how many times a week you go to the gym. It's actually about how productive your workouts are. So if this is the only metric you're looking at, you're guaranteed to fail. So the first point I want to make is that if you do train beyond 4, maybe like 5 to 6, even 7 days a week, what's going to happen is you're bringing on far too much fatigue. And when you actually go back to the gym to perform again and to do your next workout, you're just bringing on all this fatigue, all this tiredness that you've built up from your previous workout, like yesterday, and you're just bringing it into today's workout. And what's going to happen is your muscles haven't fully recovered, you're going to be too tired, you're going to be less excited to actually work out, you're going to be demotivated as well, and your body just isn't going to function properly. So an analogy which I can give you is, imagine if there was a sprinter and they were performing in the Olympics and they had a huge race tomorrow. The day before, if you saw them completely sprinting and just going hard out as hard as they can, they were fully out of breath, they were exhausted, what would you say to that sprinter? You would obviously say the most logical thing to mention is that you actually need to stop sprinting because your body needs to be fully recovered for you to be optimal and to perform as best you can tomorrow when you're racing. This is the exact same thing with bodybuilding, which so many people skim past and don't pay attention to. If you spend a lot of time the day before just working out and just pushing close to failure, working really hard at the gym, you just bring on far too much fatigue into tomorrow's workout. This isn't necessarily a bad thing to train hard, but it is if you're doing it every single day because your body's just going to break down. So the solution which I recommend if you're someone who currently is overtraining, you're going 5, 6 days a week, and you're plateauing in the gym, and you're realizing that you're not putting on as much progress as you should be, is just to cut this back to 3 days per week. This is what I've been doing recently, and I've found that my strength has just gone up massively once I started doing this. And the reason for this is because you're literally tailoring your workouts to hit PRs. You're tailoring your workouts to increase your strength and to perform progressive overload each time. So if you think about it, if you only train upper body 2 times a week, say you train it once on Monday, once on Friday, and do legs on Wednesday. If you hit upper body once on Monday, it's then going to be 4 days until Friday, and then when you work out again, your body's going to be fully recovered, and you're going to be fully rested and fully optimized to actually go back into the gym and improve on your strengths and some of your exercises. So the main thing to keep in mind here is that you're not building muscle in the gym. This is what a lot of beginners get wrong. They think that going to the gym is where they build muscle. It's actually not. The way that you build muscle is predominantly outside of the gym. It's also when you're sleeping is where you build about 70% of your muscle. So but proper rest and recovery, giving your body that time to actually go through the hypertrophy process to break down the muscle and to then rebuild. This is what really leads to building muscle and building strength. And all of this happens outside of the gym. So it's important to actually keep that in mind. When you're in the gym, you're tearing the muscle, but you build it through proper rest and recovery. So if you can cut this down to 3 days a week, you're optimizing your workouts so that each time you go back into the gym, you're fully rested and fully recovered. Therefore, hitting PRs is going to be so much easier. I found personally that once I started implementing this, doing 2 upper body days, 1 leg day per week, every single time I would be going into the gym, I'd be hitting a new PR, and I'd just be making progress each and every time. So this is something to keep in mind. Don't overtrain. Don't put your body through stress and keep putting it through stress without giving it enough time to rest and recover. Because what's going to happen is next time when you work out, you're actually not going to be fully healed and your muscles aren't going to be ready to actually rework and to actually build more muscle. And you're just going to be tearing it down further and just digging yourself a deeper hole, and you're not going to be making any progress. So the last point to go over here is that the only metric that you should actually be looking at is your strength. So if you're going to the gym 5-6 days a week and you found that you're plateauing in your strength, you're lifting the same weights every time, then it doesn't matter how many times a week you're going, because you're not putting on any muscle if you're not improving your strength. What happens when you keep increasing the weight is you keep increasing the amount of mechanical tension which your muscles are under, which increases the stimulus through the bodybuilding process, which is what leads to you building muscle. So if you're not getting stronger each and every time you go to the gym, then you're doing something wrong. If on the other hand, if you are actually building muscle and you are actually getting stronger each time, then whatever you're doing seems to be working. However, what I see most people doing is they get too caught up with just how many days a week they went, instead of actually what kind of progress they're making, if they're actually building strength gains, if they're actually progressing towards their goals in the gym. So it's if you're someone who worries about how many times a week you go to the gym, it's just the equivalent to someone who's showing up to lectures and just goes on their phone the whole time, which you see a lot of in college or university. So many people just do this, and they go to the lectures and then they just show on their phone the whole time. They don't actually learn anything, and you may as well have just stayed home. This is exactly the same kind of concept with going to the gym and with working out and then not making any progress and any gains in the gym. If you're not actually going there and increasing the amount of stress your muscles are under each time, increasing your strength, progressively overloading, then there's literally not much point in you being there, and you're actually just wasting your time. And in addition to that, it's going to backfire on you when you go into tomorrow's workout and you're too fatigued and your muscles are too sore and you don't build much muscle. So the only metric you should be looking at is strength. Am I getting stronger? Think about last week's workout, and are you progressing in the weight in this week's workout? And one key thing which everyone should be doing if you want to utilize your workouts properly is to just track it on your phone. So track the amount of weights you do, track the amount of reps you do, keep this logged in your note page on your phone, just write down the workout, set 1, the weight, how many reps, and do it for set 2, set 3, then the next exercise. And this way, when you go back into the gym the week after, you know exactly how many reps you did, for what weight, and then you can just improve this. You can either aim for more reps, or you can aim to just increase the weight slightly each time. So if you can follow this process and you're actually increasing the amount of stress your muscles are under each week, then you're really going to start putting on strength. And if you put on strength, you're just completely going to put on more muscle. It's impossible to be improving on the weights that you're lifting each week and to not be putting on muscle. So the only metric you should be looking at is strength. Don't worry about how many times a week you're going, because a lot of times it's stupid. What you should be worrying about is, am I progressively overloading in this exercise? And I think the most effective way to do that is to cut down on the amount of workouts you're doing. Just have 3 days a week so that each and every time you're fully recovered, you're fully optimized, your muscles have healed, and you're ready to go.